Thank you very much for having me. It was quite the honor to be invited here, and thank you to our participants for being here today as well. Um, this is not a very long session. I've just put up my webcam there so you can actually put a face to the voice as you hear me go through these things. As I said, it's not a very long session, and we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So I'd ask if you do have any questions as they come up, maybe jot them down for yourself or try to hold them in your memory, and then we'll be able to go over any questions that come up as you type in your questions through the chat. And we'll get started. So this talk is about achieving physical distancing and avoiding social isolation. And this is very important right now with our current landscape of COVID-19. Some of us are getting a bit fatigued from talking about it, but it's something that we can't really shake at this point in time. As we all know, British Columbia has declared a state of emergency. And this is because of this novel strain of coronavirus. The reason that it is named COVID-19 is actually because it was discovered in 2019 and it's a coronavirus. These are a well-known group of viruses, actually. They're the same viruses that cause the common cold. They're the same viruses that often cause the flu. And they range from being very benign all the way up to severe respiratory distress, which is the concern that we have right now with COVID-19 and why we're making all of these changes. So how do you contract COVID-19? So the WHO has done some amazing work of late, and they've provided us with some good advice regarding that. The important thing is that when it comes to person-to-person contact, it's really the small droplets that we have to be aware of. And those are droplets usually from the nose or the mouth that are spread when a person who has the virus actually exhales, coughs, or sneezes. Those droplets then land on an object, on another person, and that new person then touches their own nose, mouth, or eyes and are able to transfer the virus to themselves. This is the official WHO statement. Of late in the last week or so, there's also been confirmed understanding of transmission from other mammals, so other animals as well. You may have seen the news that the tigers in certain zoos have actually contracted it, and it's actually been proven to transfer from dogs as well. So it really is important for us to make sure that we wash our hands because it could be touching a surface, it could be being too close to another person who coughs or sneezes on us, or playing with our animals and then touching our own nose or our mouth. I want to make it clear I'm not advocating for not petting your dogs. Make sure that you're still giving that loving care to your animals, but be sure to wash your hands before you touch your own face when you do that. So good and regular hand hygiene, as I said, is really paramount for this. It's important to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds and using soap. There are a lot of people who don't understand the necessity for soap. Soap is actually chemically a base, and soap is able to affect the viruses by actually degrading the cell wall of the virus, which is why it's so important to have the soap there to actually degrade that virus, and the water, of course, to activate the soap and then to wash away any remnants that are there. This is a great handout from the Vancouver Coastal Health, which actually shows the ideal way to wash your hands, and taking at least 20 seconds to do that. We've all heard different songs that you can sing to yourself in your head. One of the more popular ones is singing Happy Birthday to yourself twice in your head. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is another one that you can sing, or anything else that can really get you to that count of 20. So you're sure that you're washing your hands for long enough and making sure that you're washing all of the surfaces of your hands. When you look at this picture here, you can see at number 4 there to actually wash in between your fingers, at the webs of your fingers as well, which I think a lot of people don't think about. And as you go down further, down to number 6 and number 7, getting in your nails as well, which a lot of people don't think about day to day, but it is quite important, especially in this time of coronavirus. So other than washing our hands, the next thing we can do is try to avoid the spread of the droplets. And that's where social distancing, or more accurately, physical distancing has come up. It's important for us to maintain that distance so those droplets don't actually fall on us, and hopefully that distance so that we're able to see if there is a surface that's been infected and we're able to clean it before we touch it ourselves. The suggestion is to leave at least 2 meters between each other, and that's the same as about 6.5 feet between each other. Another quick way to measure that would be to leave 2 arm lengths between people at any time, so we can minimize the risk of these droplet transmissions. Now, that of course leads to a great dilemma. Well, how do we still stay connected? We're human after all, and we're very tribal beings. We want to be with each other. It's just the way that we're wired. And having to be apart from each other can really cause a lot of social concerns for us. The important thing to realize is that physical distancing does not mean social isolation. This does not mean that you have to lose connection with your loved ones. Does not mean that you have to isolate yourself completely. It's just maintaining that physical distance. We worry about people tying them together and falling into social isolation, especially in the elderly, because it can really lead to a loss of community. And many of our seniors are vulnerable, and with that loss of community, there can be a lot of negative effects on their health through time. Some of the documented negative effects of social isolation in the elderly can be decreased memory and cognition, concerns regarding developing dementia down the line, an increased incidence of depression and anxiety, more concerns with heart disease, all the way from increased levels of heart failure to heart attacks themselves, higher blood pressure for those who were socially isolated, a higher likelihood of obesity, and also this can all lead to a higher risk of death as well. So this is why we're very much aware of social isolation and trying our best to give advice of how to avoid this in this time of physical distancing. So the approach to this is multi-pronged. You really have to focus on different aspects of your day and ensure that you're always mindful of what's happening and trying to prevent it from creeping up on you in terms of the social isolation. So we're going to go through 4 of the big things throughout the rest of this talk. We're going to talk about mentally stimulating activities, physical exercise, nutrition, and sleep as the 4 major prongs of this approach. So routines are very important. Physical distancing throws all of us out of our usual routine, but we want to try and stay as close to our normal schedule as possible. So try to keep your usual schedule of your meals, your medications, and your physical exercise. This will help to keep your body in your usual routine and really help with your sleep as well. It also will help to give you some time to feel that you're still anchored to your usual life so that you don't feel as if all is kind of taken out of its usual kilter. Outside of routines, you also want to make sure you have a good network. You don't have to isolate from your friends, families, or your neighbor. You want to be aware of them and perhaps even reach out to people who in a normal situation you wouldn't, but in this situation you feel you want to because you want to connect once again. So the recommendation is to make a list of the loved ones that you want to speak to. Of course, the joke there is about the ones you don't want to, but we'll leave that one alone for now. But make that list of your friends and family that you want to connect with, that you feel you would enjoy having a conversation with, and then sit down with your calendar and really write down a name on each of the dates, or maybe multiple names, or the same name on multiple days. But try to have some sort of a schedule where you know that you are reaching out and connecting with people. That could be through a phone call. That could be writing an email or texting someone. That could also be using video conferencing. FaceTime is available. Skype is available. These are all things that we can use to try and connect with our families, but we tend to not do it if we're not aware of it. So making yourself aware, making it a plan is important right now. If you see your neighbor out and about, don't feel that you need to socially isolate. You can still speak to your neighbor, you can still chat, you can commiserate about the situation that we're in right now, just as long as you're maintaining that 2 meter of distance. I think a lot of us have noticed when we're out for a walk that other people are wanting to look up and smile, wanting to look up and chat a little bit, but just make sure you maintain your physical distancing. If you're not able to create a list or not able to connect with your neighbors, there are other support services that are out there. You've already connected with the Parkinson's Society, which is a great resource for you. There are lots of ways to connect here, lots of ways to educate yourself as well. You can also look to your local community center. A lot of programs that usually run in person are now being done by video conferencing, or community centers are trying to come up with novel ideas to have their neighborhood still stay connected. And there may also be other groups that you're still interested in that are trying to reach out. So think about what you're interested in and connect with those groups. It's also important to find mentally stimulating activities. You don't want to stay focused on just one thing throughout the day. It's best to have a variety. So make a list again of the hobbies that you enjoy. No matter how involved or how simple they are, they will help to break up the day and they will help to keep you in more of your regular routine. Um, Examples of hobbies you may have maybe things like crafting or woodwork. You may enjoy photography. I have a picture here of the cherry blossoms. It's because on my street where I live, I've noticed an awful lot of people walking by with beautiful cameras who've decided to start taking pictures of the cherry blossoms or other things that they find. Normally you wouldn't see that, but it's a great hobby that they have, and they're trying to do that in their local neighborhood without having to go too far. You can also look at reading. A lot of the libraries are available right now and able to share ebooks with people. There are some groups which are sharing physical books amongst themselves where you can share. Neighbors are leaving books on other people's doorsteps. Make sure you wipe them down, but you can read them and share. Reading on the internet as well, the newspaper, or even just your favorite genre of TV. People often sit in front of the TV and think it's a bad thing. But right now, if it's part of keeping you in your usual routine, it's actually a good thing. Also take a look at the things that you usually like to do. And if they involved being physically close with someone, see if there's a way that you can alter it. Is there a way that you can still enjoy playing a certain game, but doing it separately, still being within a voice distance of someone else, but not physically right beside them? We're creative right now because we have to be, but there are a lot of ways to continue on with our daily lives. Also try to think about technology and how it can help. We already mentioned telephone calls, text messages, video calling. These are all great ways to stay connected. If you've never tried them before, you've got the time now to try them out. Don't be afraid of them as well. Many of these companies that have these apps are trying their best to make them as easy as possible. There's a lot of support services out there as well. So if you can't quite sort it out, you can call, or you can call another family member who can walk you through it so that you can engage using technology right now. You can try to do things virtually as well, such as watching the same television show or watching a film at the same time as a friend or a family member, and then planning to call each other and discuss it afterwards. If you enjoy text messaging, you could even text back and forth as you're watching the same film so you can share your comments about it. Starting a book club virtually via email is another thing that can work as well for groups where you all plan to read the book and then you have an email chain and you can share your thoughts on it. Playing games such as X's and O's or Battleship is another one that a lot of families are playing right now virtually, or chess, where you can each set up a board in a different household or a different place and share which moves you're going to make. Ways to do your usual activities, but still separated. It's also important to focus on variety. So try not to do the same thing over and over again, which is why I had mentioned making the list of things that you enjoy previously. You want to stay away from leaving the news cycle on all day, every day. Try to flip over to a different program, turn on the radio, pick up a magazine, flip through the flyers from the mail even, but try not to stay stuck on the same news cycle as it does tend to get quite monotonous. And right now with all of the negative news that's happening, it can have a major effect on your mood, lead to a lot of depressive symptoms in people, a lot of anxiety as well. So don't let it overrun your day. Realize that this is the news, this is the media right now, but there's a lot of other things that are happening in the world. So other than mentally stimulating activities, it's also important to maintain physical activity. It helps to break up our days, but it also has a physiological effect. Regular activity helps with our serotonin, which balances our sleep and mood. And it's also very important as you're over the age of 65 is you want to have the activity to avoid sedentary lifestyles and deconditioning. Deconditioning is a major thing that I, as a geriatrician, worry about. As you're less active, you lose your muscle mass quite quickly. Over the age of 65, we know that happens even more so. The kind of rule of thumb that we have is for every day that you spend sedentary, it takes 3 days of work on physical activity to regain the muscle that you lost in that one day of being sedentary. So though physical distancing is needed, it doesn't mean we need to stop our physical exercise. So you want to ensure that that is still part of your day. And it also helps to prevent balance concerns, falls, and fractures, which we all want to avoid, especially in the Parkinson's population, as those are a greater concern with the slower movements, the slower reaction time, and the concerns about freezing that can happen. So ways to be successful in maintaining your physical activity is to try and time it with the daytime that you feel most energized. If you're always a morning person, schedule your exercise for the morning. If you're more of a mid-afternoon person, that's when you should be scheduling your exercise. Also try to have a balance between resistance exercises and cardiovascular exercises. So cardiovascular exercises are the ones where you are really working your heart, where your heart rate rises, and you can feel as if you are losing your breath a little bit. We don't want you to be huffing and puffing. We don't want you to be pouring in sweat, but that little bit of extra work where your heart's pounding a little bit more than usual is cardiovascular exercise. Resistance exercise is usually more of the slow, controlled exercise where you're using your body weight or perhaps some resistance bands or free weights, and you're trying to push that weight and really work on the toning and strength of your muscles rather than working on your heart muscle itself. So a balance of those two is very important. Again, very important with Parkinson's disease because, of course, you're already battling the concerns with freezing and rigidity, and the stronger your muscles are, the better you'll be able to cope with that. As I said before, variety is important. You want to try and schedule different things on different days. You don't always want to go for a walk every day and only go for a walk. Try and find different things that will keep you engaged and enjoying the exercises. It is often easy for my patients especially to focus on the cardiovascular exercise but forget about the resistance training. And I just want to highlight here that the resistance training doesn't have to be difficult to engage in. You don't have to be going to a gym. You don't have to be seeing a trainer or a physiotherapist to do this. Exercises where you're carrying around your own body weight is more than sufficient to actually do those resistance exercises. Some examples of these exercises that are readily available at home are the SAIL exercises. So that stands for Strategies and Actions for Independent Living. This is a three-step set of exercises that are very well known throughout the medical field, and many of you have probably been given these by a physiotherapist or even one of your physicians. And they target exercises you can do at home. Some people actually refer to these exercises as the kitchen sink exercises. Because part of it is holding on to a strong surface. As you can see on the right-hand side of my slide there at the very bottom, there's a cartoon of a woman holding onto her kitchen sink, literally, as she's doing her exercises. These are available on websites. There's also videos for them. There are handouts that can easily be downloaded off the internet as well. And the great thing about the SAIL exercises is that they are translated into many different languages. So if you're having trouble with the English version, there are many different options there, and they're readily available throughout British Columbia. Another source of exercises is the National Institute for Healthy Aging. They have an entire website focused on exercise and aging. You're able to focus either on endurance, strength, balance, or flexibility. Endurance would be the cardiovascular exercise that I was talking about before. The strength and balance would be the resistance training that I was discussing. And the flexibility is something that they add in terms of their total package of exercises. And as you can see here from the snapshot from their website that I have, they have information about the exercises. They have try the exercises where they have diagrams of how to do them. And they also have videos that you can follow along to add these to your daily regimen. Other classes that are great for resistance training are Tai Chi and OsteoFit. You may have come across these at your local community center before. They are also available on videos. There are DVDs for Tai Chi and OsteoFit, and also YouTube videos as well. Tai Chi has actually been the exercise that has shown to have the greatest benefit in preventing falls, more so than any of the other resistance exercises. So we highly recommend that. I also like to highlight for people that stretching exercises such as yoga don't help to prevent the falls and fractures. And falls and fractures are a thing that we really worry about in the Parkinson's population. Yoga is not evil by any means. It still has a great benefit for meditation, mindfulness, and flexibility. But if you are doing yoga, remember that it's not helping with your resistance. It's not helping with your strengthening. And you need to do something like Tai Chi or other exercises on top of the yoga. Walking is also an excellent resistance exercise. So it gets you your cardio and it also gets you your resistance because you're having to hold your body as you are walking around. Key though is to maintain the 2 meters of separation. There are actually infrared pictures and studies that have been done through the WHO, which show that as people are running or people are walking and exercising, they are still producing droplets, still within that 2-meter kind of diameter. So you want to be sure that you keep that separation. If you see another person walking, you don't need to, of course, run away from them, but try to step to the side of the sidewalk so you can maintain as much distance as possible, so that we can all enjoy the outdoors together, but also stay safe. And as always, make sure you're washing your hands, even if you're just going out for a walk, even if you think you haven't touched anything, it is still paramount to wash your hands every time that you come home and to do that full 20 seconds of hand washing as well. You want to target at least 20 minutes of exercise each day. If you're getting a bit tired of it or you're finding trouble with motivation, try to reward yourself. Remember, at this point in time, the exercise is not in an attempt to build up muscle. The exercise is not on its own an attempt to build up your endurance. You're doing this exercise for your benefit of your psyche while we're all dealing with social isolation. So it's okay to do that exercise and then reward yourself with some sort of a treat, whether that's a little bowl of ice cream, that extra cup of coffee you might want, or whether that's simply just giving yourself a star on the calendar so you can feel good about the fact that you've been able to mark off each day. If you don't like doing the exercise, you can try to spice it up with other activities that you enjoy. Just doing a 10-minute walk and then maybe enjoying the garden for a bit and then doing another 10-minute walk. Or another way that has worked very well for a lot of my patients is actually sprinkling their exercise through their TV shows. So if you're watching a television show live, when the commercials come on, that's when you pop up and you do about 2 minutes of exercise during those commercials. And by the end of a 1-hour program, you'll have completed a good 22 minutes of exercise and you've just hit your goal for the day. So try to find ways to make sure the exercise is part of your day, even if it's a non-traditional way of exercising. We then move on to our third point of nutrition in terms of maintaining your health. So when we're quote unquote stuck at home, it's very easy to get focused on your meals because they're the only real touchstones throughout the day. You finish breakfast and what else do you do but start thinking about what to prepare for lunch? That can be a slippery slope, as it can be quite easy to either indulge too much and reward yourself too much with your meals, or to become too strict as you worry about eating too much. So try not to make the meals a major focus for your day. Still try to schedule them at the same time, but don't become overwhelmed with them. Always use the Canada Food Guide as well as a way to guide your nutrition. They have a great handout here from their website for their current recommendations. And the easiest way to think of it is as the half plate, quarter plate, quarter plate. So you always want half of your plate to be either fruits or veggies. You want a quarter of your plate to be a protein of some sort, and the other quarter plate to be some sort of grain. So the fruits and veggies, whether those are fresh, whether those are cooked, it doesn't matter, but you want to have that half of your plate with the vegetables there. In terms of protein, there's a wide variety that you can look at. Just even looking at this picture, you can see there are different types of meat, different types of fish, eggs are there, lentils are there as well. And you want them to take about a quarter of your plate. When you're talking about meat and poultry and you're wondering how much is the right amount for you, if you actually take a look at the palm of your hand, that's the size of protein that the average person needs. And that, of course, changes with whether you're a tall person or a shorter person. So the size of your palm and about the thickness of your palm as well is how much protein you should be eating. And in terms of the whole grains, it doesn't matter whether that's pasta, whether that's bread, whether that's quinoa, but always trying to have your carbohydrates coming as a whole grain is important, and especially right now with social isolation as we want to maintain our health. Sleep is the next major thing that we want to maintain. When you don't have your usual schedule, it's easy to either stay up too late or get bored and go to bed too early, and that can really throw off your circadian rhythm. And as that happens, you end up having interruptions of your sleep at night. You have more trouble falling asleep. So it's very important for us to maintain sleep hygiene. So this is taken from the Center for Disease Control, and it's a great way to summarize what we call sleep hygiene. The consistency of this is important, and we hope that everyone can follow this. Often if you follow these steps, you can avoid the need for any sort of medication for sleep hygiene. So it's good to follow this. Being consistent is the first part of this. So trying to go to bed around the same time each night and trying to wake up in the morning around the same time. And this includes the weekends. So now without the usual activities that we have to do, it'd be easy to say I'm going to sleep in, but try to wake up as you usually would. Ensuring that your bedroom is an inviting place to sleep is also important. Also try to darken it as much as possible. Hopefully it's a quiet room as well. Ensure that it's a comfortable temperature for yourself. This also leads over to bedding. Make sure that your bedding is comfortable for you. It's not too itchy or it's not too slippery. You want to have your best chance at being comfy there. Removing electronic devices from your bedroom is also a suggestion. So you don't want to have screens in the room. Screens are distracting. They invite us to activate them, and we can often spend hours with them. They also have an effect on our retinas with the light that they cast out. So the strong recommendation for good sleep is to not have a television, computer, or smartphone. I'll also add a tablet to that list here. You don't want to have those things in the bedroom. You want to avoid large meals, caffeine, or alcohol before bedtime. Each of those has an effect on your body's mechanisms, but also on your hormone levels, and that can disrupt your sleep. And as always, as every doctor will tell you, you always want to get plenty of exercise for all the reasons we said before, but also to maintain your sleep. It's important now to realize as well that we're not alone. Combating social isolation and maintaining physical distancing is a new thing for all of us. We are not really working with a playbook. We're kind of making it up as we go. It cannot be achieved alone. So it's important to talk about your frustrations with the situation, vent if you need to, commiserate if you need to. I'm still working in my office and I'm seeing about 3 to 4 patients a day, all of them either via telephone or video conferencing. And I'll say the first usual 5 to 10 minutes of each of my assessments has been talking with my patients and their families about what's going on in the world right now and how they're frustrated and the political things that are happening, but also the stressors of not being able to achieve our usual days. And that commiserating is really a good release for all of us. So it's important to find that person to talk to or that group of people to talk to and realize it's okay to vent about this right now. Also ask for help if things seem to be overwhelming. So if you find that the anxiety or low mood or sleep are becoming a concern for you, if they're different for you, you've never experienced this, or if you have experienced depression or anxiety in the past and you feel it creeping back up again, connect with your family doctor. We're all still working as physicians. We worked very hard to convert all of our practices to telehealth. So your usual family doctor is likely open and operating. You don't need to worry about going to a new program or a virtual program where you don't know the doctor. But do seek out help from a physician if you feel you need it. And remember, though, right now we are asked to stay apart. None of us are alone. We're all in this together. So it's a time for us to lean on each other. So make sure that you do if it's needed. So that was my presentation on physical distancing and avoiding social isolation. Just as a quick review, COVID-19 is a new coronavirus that causes respiratory symptoms, and it's transmitted through droplets. Because of the concern of droplet transmission, we really need to focus on physical distancing as well as hand washing to try and prevent this pandemic from getting any worse. Physical distancing does not have to be the same as social isolation. We want to avoid social isolation as it has negative effects on our health, especially in the elderly and especially in those who are battling Parkinson's disease. The key to preventing social isolation is maintaining a good routine, keeping your mentally stimulated activities going, though you may need to be creative with them, having physical exercise as part of your daily routine, good nutrition and good sleep are there. And also remembering that support and help is available during this time. As you can see right now, we're doing a webinar about this through the Parkinson's Society. I know that they're working very hard to have other programs available and other webinars available for their participants as well. Your local community center is a great resource. And if you feel you're overwhelmed at all, just to connect with your physician to let them know how you're feeling. So that is the run through of the presentation. I'm hopeful that I haven't put you all to sleep now or bored you enough to turn away from the computer. But if you have any questions, I would be welcome to taking them right now.
Thank you, Dr. Parmar. That was a very informative and helpful webinar. So we do have time for questions if you guys want to type in the chat box. Well, I guess you answered all their questions through the presentation.
Well, I hope it's that and not that it's been so boring. But if there are any questions that come up in the future, I'm happy to be available to people to answer them as well. For those that are watching this on the web afterwards as well, feel free to reach out and connect with me. I'm happy to discuss this further if you have any questions about it.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Parmar. I want to thank you all again for joining today. Please do check our website for upcoming webinars. We do have some great informative webinars like today's, and this webinar will be recorded, has been recorded, and so we will be sharing that as well.